AITAH for feeling disrespected by hubby, co-worker. So, long story short, my husband is a blue-collar worker. He deals with his crew, customers and so on. There is one female in particular that I cannot stand, especially when I see her. Granted, she is older, but not bad looking. I'm sure all the guys have talked about her. My issue with this situation is that when communicating via text she is overly friendly. I'm sad I'm not with you today. Where were you today? I love when I'm working with you. And it always involves hearts and other emojis. Husband doesn't see a problem with it, but guaranteed if the roles were reversed he would not be happy. So, am I overthinking and overreacting? 30. AITAH for not wanting to be close with my cousin anymore. I, 21F, grew up with my cousin, 25M, since I was about 3 years old. His mother, my mom's sister, and him had to move in with us, though I don't really know all the details why. So we grew up together, and because I'm otherwise an only child and so is he, our parents really wanted us to feel and be like siblings. He's the closest thing to an older brother I've had. He had to move schools and leave his hometown to come live with us, and I think he had trouble adjusting and leaving his old friends behind. He was really angry all the time growing up, and he took it out on anyone who was nearby. Most of the time, that ended up being me. My dad really didn't like his behavior, and the two of them would fight all the time. And whenever my cousin, we'll call him W, would fight with my dad, when it was over he would either break things around the house or start screaming at me. I used to try to make him feel better after they would fight, but he always just got really nasty with me and told me I was stupid for thinking I could understand him and just made everything worse. My aunt wasn't around a lot because she was working, so my parents did a lot of the discipline, and to be honest, I don't know if they did a very good job. They yelled at him a lot, mostly my dad, but still, and he would always lash out in response. Nothing could ever get his behavior to stop. Even my aunt, when she was around, would just kind of brush his behavior off as difficult, because he was in a difficult situation with the move in their life, but she kept saying that even after they'd been with us for years. I don't know exactly when he started to feel this way because W and I only talked about this semi-recently, which I'll get to soon. But apparently W resented me because my relationship with the adults in our house was better than his. While my dad was always fighting with him, my parents rarely ever had to discipline me. I got good grades and didn't get into trouble at school and kept to myself, mostly to avoid my cousin's moods and his destructive tendencies. My cousin didn't do well with school, not because he isn't smart though. I don't really know what the problem was, I just know it was hard for him. He was able to get into a pretty good college, but only went for a year at the pressure of his mom before dropping out due to the added stress of the pandemic. Things really started to get bad between us around my last year of elementary school. He started telling me that no one at my middle school next year would like me because I was annoying and stupid and boring and a goody-goody. Once I got to middle school, he got mad every time I talked about a new friend, or he saw I got a good grade, or when I did anything social really. Sometimes I would come back to the house and things in my room would be just a little off, but nothing was clearly broken or missing, so I started to get really paranoid about leaving my room for long periods of time when he would be home. He put me down whenever he could, called me ugly and all that stuff. He hurt me physically only a couple times. One time he shoved me down and sat on me and twisted my arm behind my back until I screamed, but we were in the basement so it took a while for anybody to hear us. Another time he shoved food he knew I was allergic to, strawberries, in my face at a family picnic and some of the juice got in my eye. I was okay though, just some swelling. His mom told me to ignore him so he would stop bothering me, and my parents were apologetic but otherwise felt they couldn't do much more about him than try to talk to my aunt about how to handle him. But she always insisted he was just being a kid and boys play rough, yada yada. After he came back from that year of college, he's been living at my parents' house where my aunt also still lives. She's tried to move out multiple times over the years, but it always ended up falling through somehow, the longest time being a few months. But W mellowed out after that 1 year at school and is nowhere near as mean to me as he used to be. We have some shared interests, who while we were all stuck together in the house over COVID we talked about them and actually bonded some. It felt kind of like maybe he wanted to be, if not my brother like our parents had tried to push when we were little, at least my friend. And that was nice. But he still gets aggressively volatile when he's mad and still gets mad so easily. I don't want to be afraid of him, but whenever he even so much as frowns at me I get so anxious I shake and feel like I need to run away and hide like I did as a kid, or else I'll vomit. We talked a lot though, and when he didn't get mad at me or any of our parents, he wasn't scary. But whenever there was a disagreement, over anything, he would get so defensive and turn back into the really scary person I knew as a kid. When the pandemic ended, I went to live on my college campus for the first time and got out of the house, and I really liked it. And I didn't talk much, but he would randomly send me memes or small things once in a while and we would have small chats. But we otherwise didn't talk unless I was back at home for some reason, and I didn't mind it that way. I also started going to therapy and I've learned a lot about how my childhood, specifically everything with W, negatively impact me even to this day. But I've been taking steps to work through it and I feel like I'm doing a little better every day. Last year, over winter break from school, he apologized to me for the way things were when we were kids. He was crying and it was a big deal, but while I believed him, I found I couldn't forgive him. I honestly don't think he noticed I never said, "I forgive you," though. He said he's changed a lot since then and he started going to therapy too after I moved out and he's not the person he used to be anymore. But I don't actually feel like he's all that different. Yeah, he and I can have a normal conversation for a while often, but he's so quick to feel attacked and go on the defensive, make demands of people and tell them they aren't being reasonable when they don't give him what he wants, etc. When I had the interaction with him recently that led to me making this post, he told me that when I tell him how the things he says hurts my feelings, that's me gaslighting him because he shouldn't have to question whether his actions are hurtful to other people when he wasn't trying to be mean. But because we got a little more friendly when we were locked in together, and he apologized once for almost a decade of treating me really badly, I think he thinks we're supposed to be all good now. But I'm not all good, and I don't know what to do with that. One of my mom's cousins is getting married this weekend, so we're all here for the ceremony and all the final stuff. Because of school stuff I couldn't leave as early as my parents wanted to, so W said he'd travel with me while everyone else left earlier. And it wasn't great. He got stressed out over little things not going his way and I was so scared he was going to start yelling at and bullying me just because he was mad. I started to get paranoid and so anxious I made myself nauseous. He only snapped at me a couple times, though, and they were small things, but it still made me want to cry. And one of them was a mistake I'd made, so he could have had the right to be upset with me about that. But after everything I've learned with my therapist and how awful I felt around him even when he wasn't actively being mean to me, I've realized he isn't someone I think I can be around and have a relationship with. I don't like how I feel around him and I don't feel like he really cares about me and I'm always scared he'll hurt me again if he's angry, even though he hasn't done that in years and it really was only a couple times ever. We ended up talking about all this after the rehearsal dinner, because I didn't want to be around him and he noticed I was avoiding him and he wanted to know what was wrong. I was shaking the whole time we spoke, he got so angry so fast, and I told him I didn't think we should be close because I didn't think we could ever really fix our relationship. He told me he was a better person now and that he'd apologized, and he looked really confused as if that should have been enough. And maybe it should have been. If it actually did feel like he was getting better, maybe it would have been. But maybe I just can't see him as anyone but who he used to be and he actually is getting better, but I just can't see it. I can't tell if I'm being unfair to him because of my trauma from our childhood or if it's actually better that he and I don't have a relationship going forward. He just looked really hurt and confused, even after he said what he said about me telling him how I feel about his actions is bad communication, because it's actually me gaslighting him, like I mentioned above, and doesn't invite respectful dialogue between us. I'm really happy and at peace in a way I've never been before when I'm at college and don't have to be nervous about seeing and interacting with him. I feel like my life would be better without him in it, but that just feels really cruel, and especially after what happened after the rehearsal dinner I feel so guilty when he thinks he's trying to be better. But I feel the most guilty about the fact that I don't want to feel bad for him anymore. I tried to be there for him for years and he was so awful, and now he wants me to keep trying to be good to him even when he still can't treat me very well. Am I the asshole for not wanting to be in his life anymore and not wanting to feel bad about that? TLDR. Am I the asshole for not wanting to be close to my cousin who treated me really badly throughout our shared childhood even after he stopped being as bad in his adulthood and we bonded a little?